and let's say they start to depress, we'll put them back on their nasal cannula. Or if you should knock out their hypoxic drive, well, you know how to fix it. Okay, sorry, I'm not trying to be ugly when I say that, but you can fix it by doing positive pressure ventilation until you get them to the emergency room and then let them deal with it. But again, there's that gray area, because if we start them off with a higher concentration and we notice things are starting to decline, then that means we need to back off the oxygen and come back down to a nasal cannula and start with 2 and then titrate it up to 4. Anything more than that, you see what I'm saying? Because back in the day, when we were actually using a lot more Venturi masks, that's what they used. It was a certain concentration that kept them in that certain range, and then they were like, well, you know, this is way too much, and this, that, and the other, so we'll just go standard with a nasal cannula. And then they redeveloped through research that new range of 84 to 92%. So again, the nasal cannula seems to work well with them. But again, once they exacerbate themselves for whatever reason, then the higher concentrations is when we get called, because they're in so much distress that, you know, they feel like they can't breathe more than normal, if you will, because, you know, their norm, they're always struggling. And so, again, emphysema patients, COPD patients is one that I wouldn't go higher than a simple face mask. I don't care how they were presenting. Because one, if I can keep them breathing on their own, that's where I want them to be. Because if I'm having to swap to positive pressure ventilation because I've knocked out their hypoxic drive, I've just made his life complicated. And so it's just that fine line. You're just gonna, it's a like a case by case type of basis.
They were in the book, they're like, it's rare, don't worry
Yeah,
about
so
it, just
give
give
them
them all the other things.
Yep, no. So just that hesitation is what I'm saying. So as far as workforce safety and wellness of the EMT, you should know about workforce safety. That's talking about personal protective equipment, how you yourself need to stay well, exercise, eat regularly, things like that. Also be very much aware of how you deal with stress, okay, because that's going to be important in this line of work. How many of you heard about the 5-year-old that was killed Sunday night? No? Okay. All right, so pretty stressful situation. The actual soldier, him and his family was out on a rainy night. I think it was Sunday night whenever it was raining. And whatever happened between, and the reason why I know this is because the family, my husband knew, and we actually had him over at our house several times. The family was together. They had either 3 or all 5 children in their vehicle, and the 5-year-old was throwing a temper tantrum, doing something, and the soldier whooped the car over on the side of an expressway, a busy expressway, and told the kid to get out, and drove off. Even if it was for like 10 or 15, 50 feet, whatever it was, and had turned around to come back to get him. And the boy got lost or kind of didn't see his way, and he wound up getting hit and killed Sunday night.
Jesus.
The soldier was brought up on charges Monday morning, and he turned himself in Monday afternoon. So the ambulance responded, and as you can imagine, dealing with a 5-year-old that got hit by a vehicle.
Expressway, not just the paper.
It was like a major, not express, but a highway that was very busy. Like it was someone like going toward Fort Mitchell somewhere.
Oh, I know.
So it was pretty busy, whatever that. So it was in the news, and the EMS crew, responded to the call, and as you can imagine, their stress levels went up a notch. The boy was actually transported, and they called him dead on arrival at the hospital. So again, you need to understand how to cope with stress.
Don't watch the news.
Yeah, I don't watch it. Well, still today, I really don't watch a whole lot of news. We live the news, if you really think about it. How many of y'all heard about, I think it was 25, 26 is what we counted. 25 or 26 shootings over the last 4 days here in Columbus.
I've heard, I didn't know it was that many, but I've heard about them.
Oh, yeah. So, again, your stress levels. Chapter 3, the medical, legal, and ethical issues. Obviously, you need to know the consents, all of them. You also need to understand negligence and what the plaintiffs has got to prove against you that you were negligent as an EMT. So be able to apply the different types of consents to different types of situations. And the 4 things to prove negligent on your part when it comes to the medical, legal, and ethical issues. Also know about HIPAA. You should know about the confidentiality clause in your field and so forth. And I'll be the first one to tell you, and I was pretty shocked about this whenever I heard it, but this was like a couple classes ago, one of our advanced students went and tested, and then he applied to a job. They called him in for an interview, and they sat down, and on the person's desk, the interviewer's desk, was all patient informations about previous calls and stuff like that, just openly laid out on their desk, and they were just shocked. Patient name, information, past medical history, things like that, just openly laying on, just like shovel. So by the time, hey, how you doing? And he sat down and he looked down, I mean, he could have, so anyway. Just letting you know what HIPAA is, confidentiality.
Use folders.
Huh?
Use folders.
Yeah, so do something, dang. Okay, so
Have a meeting.
documentation chapter. So the documentation chapter, again, I'm not gonna be so heavy on documentation right now. And the reason why I say that is because we've been doing we've done several case studies or whatever for the documentation purpose. But in order for you to really get into the swing of things, I'm having the Region 7 director come in and explain to you how we're going to do patient care reports on the state system while you're a student. So the things that were mentioned in the chapter on documentation that included dispatch time, arrival time at the scene, arrival time at the patient, the time you left the scene, the time you arrived at the hospital, and then your in-service time. Things like this is all going to be explained. You're going to get very accustomed to this particular program because it's a program that every service has to be involved in. At Grady, it was a little different. We had our own type, but all the information still got sent to the state, but just in a different format. So this is to expose you to the current programs that are out there, or the program for the state of Georgia that each service is required to input information into. So I'm not going to stress so much about documentation, just a couple of things to understand. One is that it now becomes part of the patient's medical record, and that is a legal document. You have only 24 hours to correct or add an addendum to that before it's locked out and you can't do jack anymore. Okay, so kind of a couple of things to know about documentation. One, it becomes a medical document or a part of the medical record of your patient, and also it's a legal document. Okay, so not too much. I want you to stay focused on documentation right now. Next semester, when you start clinicals, then we'll start pushing the issue of documentation, format, and so forth, and so on. So I don't want you to focus so much on documentation right now, okay? Because next semester is going to change. Once we start getting into trauma, and we start incorporating a trauma assessment, then you're going to get very familiar with documentation, especially when you start clinicals. Has everybody got their stuff for clinicals? So all your medical records and stuff like that, I've got in my office. You've got your shirts, you got your pants, you got your belt, your stethoscope, your pen light, your trauma shears, and your safety vest. Everybody try?
Gonna go pick up a safety vest today.
Okay, that's fine. Just, I want everybody to have it, so you still have a month and a half, okay? I want all of this put together in your possession, ready to go the first day of next semester. So that when Everybody can come in uniform one day because we normally take pictures when everybody's got their uniforms. But as you can tell, there's one in the room in there, so the other pictures are upstairs in my office. And two, so that we can inspect and make sure that you've got everything that you need. And three is so that Frank can come down here and explain to you how the clinical rotations are gonna work, and he'll explain all that to you up front. Now, again, I'll reiterate, after we've done about the first 4 weeks of class on trauma, I'm kicking you loose to start clinicals. So you have the option of doing as many rides as you want, okay? And I strongly encourage you to do so with your time permitting. And again, this is based on your availability, okay? Please don't make me put it to where I'm gonna set the days and you either show up or you get a 0 for the time, okay? So if you say to Frank, hey, I'm gonna be here on this day, okay, I expect you to be there unless like a medical emergency or something comes up, okay? Because again, we are not the only school in town, and we have to share with other colleges and stuff like that as far as our time with clinicals. Yes?
You were mentioning this, and I'm wondering if by early next semester, will we know if the other services are gonna let us roll with them, or is it still just gonna be community for now?
I'm still waiting on Columbus Fire, and I have to go meet with EMS Care and the director over there this week. So that, once that happens, she didn't add any addendums to our MOU, so it should go straight to the president. I should have that back within a week. So EMS Care, community, we do have Harris County, we do have, crap. There was one, we have first response, so there are some options out there as far as getting the patient contacts and stuff like that that you need. Yes, Mom?
I was just gonna, you already answered the question, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So, that's kind of the projection and stuff like that for next semester. So, again, don't study so much about documentation right now, all right? We're gonna get heavy into it next semester.
So what you were saying
This is what
that,
I'm ready for.
What?
I said that's what I'm ready for.
Oh, okay.
Hands on.
I got you, yeah. Yeah, it's all gonna make sense.
Hands on,
Gonna
'cause
be-
this-
So are we saying that Jordan uses a universal program now? It's not gonna be different per service on the electronic?
Well, it'll be slightly different per service, but the main core of the information is gonna be the same.
Cool.
So, yeah, so that's part of the reason why, when David took over as the director of EMS, at the state level, he wanted all the students who's coming through programs to actually get exposed to the program, since all of the services are required to input data. So at least you'll be exposed to the program. You're not gonna be like, well, what is this? And expect cause a lot of places aren't gonna give you a whole lot of on-the-job training. You're just gonna kind of, here it is, throw you to the wolves type thing. You may be with a preceptor for a couple of days, maybe. So you're trying to learn a program like that pretty in depth, okay? So don't worry about that. Okay, communication and I think EMS communications and all that stuff's in that particular area.
Did James or Mr. Bloodworth, can we get that radio report sheet?
I'll see if he sent it to me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have 206 emails to go through, and I haven't gone through them all this morning.
Okay.
So I know, right? So, but I will look for that. It may be in one of the other folders I have upstairs, but I'll look. Lifting and moving patients, just know the different types. Say it again.
Uh-oh, something.
Not really. I mean, just other than the fact of common sense. If you're dealing with someone like you and I, you're not gonna change communication skills. When you're dealing with a 2-year-old, definitely different, as well as a geriatric. So you're looking at therapeutic communications, you're also looking at the communication between you and other medical professions, and you're also dealing with communications via radio. So I don't really test a whole lot about that until next semester, toward the end of the semester, because what I've found through the previous students is that the first couple of chapters y'all kind of omit altogether after the first semester is over. That's how come you do so poorly on National Registry. So I reincorporate all that stuff into next semester to where we're constantly doing things to keep you abreast of that information, especially ambulance operations and stuff. So, lifting and moving patients, you need to know all the different types of carries, all the different types of lifts. Remember there's always, rules, okay? There's rules to lifting, know the rules, okay? Keep your back straight, bend with your legs, lift with your legs, things like that. How you properly sheet someone over, you're not doing this number, you gotta have, okay? So know the rules to lifting and moving patients and the different types of lifts. Lifespan development, the only thing I want you to know about the lifespan development is the key benchmarks for each grouping and what the groupings are as far as age-wise, okay? So for infants, for example, they should have that palmar reflex, that if you put something in their palm, they automatically kind of grasp, if you will, or if you put something right here, they should be suckling type thing. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about benchmark things that happen through the lifespans and in different categories and what the ages are. Don't stay focused on like respiratory rate, blood pressures and all that stuff. I don't want you to deal with that. The only respiratory rate that I need you to know is 30 to 60 on an infant, okay? Even in the medical world, I can tell you right now what the normal rate for, you know, a 7-year-old is, okay? I'll pull up my cheat sheet.
Breathing?
Say it again.
Breathing?
Respiratory rate, yes, for an infant. 30 to 60 or 40 to,
53
say it again.
30 to 53.
Okay, so 30 to 60, I'm telling you, is on a test, okay? That's the only one that I've seen and I've heard from other classes who's taken National Registry. Now, when it comes to EMSP 1130, okay, you better start taking notes. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, chapter 15, shock and resuscitation. You need to know the different types of shock. They fall under one of 4 categories, and then you need to know an example of each.
Oh yeah, this is for the study guide, right?
Yeah,
Study
you
guide.
told this already.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, I'm just going back over it. Make sure you have it written down. Know the different stages of shock. Compensated, decompensated, and irreversible. You should review your BLS book as far as CPR is concerned. Chapter 16, respiratory emergencies. You should know about COPD, asthma. You should also know the physiology behind respiration and ventilation. You should know your treatment options for asthma, for COPD. You should also, what was the other one? CHF, but that's also mentioned in the cardiovascular system.
Yeah, so that's chronic bronchitis.
Yep.
Emphysema.
That's all under COPD. Cardiovascular emergencies, chapter 17. Angina. When it becomes unstable, and also signs and symptoms of an AMI in your treatment. Understand why you do what you do with the medications that